Simple and joyful. These are the words that sum up the vision of the world's largest pen company. But where did it all start? Following the liberation of Paris from Nazi occupation on August 25, 1944, Marcel Bic and his colleague Edouard Bouffard formed PPA, Porte-Plume, Porte-Mine et Accessoires, pens, mechanical pencils, and accessories. They did this on October 25, 1944. But they did not start out manufacturing the ubiquitous Bic Crystal pen that we all know and use today. At this rather challenging time, PPA, as it was known, began manufacturing a variety of fountain pen bodies, gold nibs, and mechanical pencil parts for the Waterman Pen Company in the USA. Join me as we go on the journey from humble contractor to global leaders in the pen, lighter, and razor industry that is dominated by Bic. Marcel Bic was born in Turin, Italy in 1914. He moved to Spain when his family followed his father, who was a mining engineer. In 1925, the family moved to France. Marcel studied and got into the stationery business. In 1931, Marcel enrolled into law school while working as a delivery man and sales rep before being hired by Beau Repair, a stationery company specializing in office supplies. Although hired to fill a simpler scribbler position, he was soon offered a training mentorship that would open the doors to a big opportunity. After the acquisition of the company by Ecrisec, a producer of fountain pens, and eventually Incres Stevens, an English company, Marcel was promoted to production manager, a step that would allow him to resolve the management issues he once noticed. In 1938, at the age of 22, Marcel married Louise Chamoussi. In 1939, he joined the Air Force at the start of the war, but was later decommissioned in 1940. During the German occupation, Marcel made frequent trips between Paris and his home in Rouy in the Oise, from where he brought back food for his family and the workers at Stevens. At the end of the war, Marcel Bic, then 30 years old, was tired of growing a business that was not his own. He went in search of a business to purchase. His colleague and ally, Edouard Bouffard, who was eager to be part of the adventure, told him about a fountain pen factory created by a former Stevens foreman. The man struggled to stay above water, leading him to sell his old-fashioned machines and dilapidated shed located at 18 Impasse de Cailloux in Clichy to Marcel and Edouard for 500,000 francs. On October 25, 1944, PPA, also known as Porte-Plume, Porte-Mine et Accessoires, was born. Marcel and Edouard became Waterman's subcontractors, selling to the large US firm from two production sites, one in Paris and another in the inner suburbs. They sold a variety of fountain pen bodies, gold nibs, and mechanical pencil parts. Realizing that in order to succeed it was necessary to manufacture products faster and cheaper, Marcel Bic set out to find more efficient machines. In Switzerland, he was impressed by Turnos automatic lathes used to manufacture the inner gears for Patek and Jaeger-LeCoultre watches. He had 4 of them sent to Clichy. They were extremely precise in metal, but unfortunately proved to be ineffective in ebonite, the material used for pen holders. Marcel Bic put these machines in a back corner of the workshop and decided to acquire an injection mold in Austria that cast plastic material at 280 degrees Celsius under a thrust of 250 tons. The results were immediate. At the end of 1948, 3,000 nibs and 5,000 frames left the Clichy factory every day, and the cost of manufacturing a pen holder body dropped from 100 down to 5 francs. Marcel Bic won the competitiveness bet. Having finally become a prosperous business, PPA received an order for 10,000 frames for ballpoint pens at the beginning of 1949. At that time, the main ballpoint pens in circulation were the Byrome, designed by the Hungarian Laszlo Biro in 1938, and the Rocket, designed by Reynolds and launched in the United States in 1945. However, the pens from both brands were particularly known for their defects. "This kind of pen will never catch on," the CEO of Waterman even said. Being unaffected by the prophecy, Marcel Bic spent hours examining existing models in order to analyze what was causing the breakdowns that affected them. It took him almost 2 years of testing to understand that the solution lay in the manufacture and crimping of a perfectly round ball. The idea of the ballpoint came to him suddenly when he pushed a wheelbarrow in the garden of his country house in Wyss. By observing the operation of the wheel, the evidence hit him. The ballpoint is the application of the wheel to writing. He shared this with Raymond de Sol, director of Osmior, another company devoted to the creation of pens, and he helped him to apply this principle. Marcel Bic then took the watchmaking machines purchased in Switzerland out of the shed. Thanks to those machines, he was able to quickly and successfully manufacture a more efficient and reliable ballpoint than those of his competitors. Likewise, he succeeded in perfecting the ink formula and the fit between the ballpoint, the tip, and the reservoir tube. To promote his invention, which guaranteed the writer no breakdowns and leaks, Marcel Bic decided to create his own brand, Bic, without the H, forged from his surname. Easy to remember and to pronounce, the abbreviation reflected Marcel Bic's simplicity design, which would inspire a new relationship with writing. It was under the Bic brand that the Crystal was launched in December 1950, a beautiful, inexpensive, easy-to-handle and light ballpoint pen. Measuring 14 centimeters, the Crystal looks like a pencil with a hexagonal and transparent body, which allows users to check consumption in real time. Ending in a brass tip, it was topped with a black, blue, red, green, or purple cap, which let the writer know the color of the ink contained in the reservoir. The pen's ink also dried instantly on paper, representing a seemingly trivial but particularly remarkable innovation. Originally designed to also be refillable with cartridges sold separately, the Crystal was praised by consumers as a pen that multiplies to infinity. Thanks to Marcel's innovation, PPA's turnover went from 331 million francs to 760 million francs in 1 year. In 1951, nearly 21 million Bic pens were sold in France and 3.5 million in Belgium, which became the leading export country for the company's products. While Marcel Bic was achieving his first great industrial and commercial victory, he was simultaneously facing a terrible personal and family tragedy. In March of 1950, his wife Louise died prematurely. She left behind their 4 young children, Claude, Marie-Caroline, and their 2 youngest sons, Bruno and Francois, born in 1946 and 1949 respectively. Marcel Bic was constantly seeking to perfect his pens, which led him to develop a tungsten carbide ballpoint that was much more resistant than the steel used until then. From 1961, and in order to be clearly differentiated, all models fitted with a tungsten carbide ballpoint had an orange body. It was due to the launch of this innovation that Raymond Savignac designed the Bic Boy, a schoolboy in short pants and a tie with a ballpoint as a head. Through this character, which appeared in the logo of the brand in 1962 next to the parallelogram, the goal was to establish it in schools where the ballpoint pen faced fierce resistance. In France, it was not until 1965 that students were authorized by national education to abandon the dip pen. Sales of Bic jumped immediately. The Bic Crystal became popular with families for its excellent value for money. Happy to finally have clean copies without ink stains, children also liked to chew on it and use it as a blowgun. In 1991, the cap was drilled to comply with British Standard BS 7272-1, intended to avoid the risk of suffocation in the case of accidental ingestion. The success of the Crystal was just the start of what would become a universally recognized lineup of pens. In 1970, Bic launched a new edition of its iconic pen, the 4 colors. The unique pen combined 4 ink cartridges of different colors: blue, black, green, and red in a single pen body. In 1972, the company branched out to writing felt, an instrument invented in Japan 10 years earlier. A specialized factory, the management of which was entrusted to Claude Bic, is located in Wyss in France. Finally, in 1979, BIC entered the colouring, marking and graphite market through the acquisition of the French company Conte. It was founded in 1795, and it had merged with Gilbert and Blanzy-Pour in 1960, then with Banyel and Farjon a few months earlier. The internationalization of the company was extremely quick. In the decade after the creation of the BIC crystal, the brand established itself in Europe, Brazil, countries in the Commonwealth area, and on the African continent. Depending on the market and situation, Marcel BIC would proceed with an expansion in one of two ways: by creating commercial subsidiaries or even factories in certain key countries, or by acquiring local companies that had a strong distribution network or good industrial tools. In 1951, a year after launching the BIC crystal, the pen was exported for sale in Belgium, where it sold nearly 3.5 million pens in 1 year. In 1954, an important step was taken when Marcel BIC opened a factory in Milan, Italy, in order to avoid excessively high customs duties, as the European common market did not yet exist. After a year of activity, the factory had 200 workers. Also in 1954, Marcel BIC set up a manufacturing unit in Barcelona, Spain. This was done through a license agreement from the Spanish and Portuguese markets, solidified by one of Marcel's relatives, Roger Laforest. It was also with Roger Laforest that BIC would later arrange for the distribution of lighters to French tobacco stores. In 1956, BIC Lugano was created, a distribution company for Switzerland, while BIC products gradually entered the Netherlands and Austria. Germany would prove to be more difficult to enter and remained resistant to the French ballpoint pen for a long time. On July 15, 1956, a commercial subsidiary, BIC Industria Estrografica Brasileira, was created in Sao Paulo. Brazil was not the only country in South America where Marcel BIC sought to establish his brand. From the early 1960s, his pens were already exported to the four corners of the continent. Countries like Chile, Ecuador, Uruguay, Panama, Peru, El Salvador, Paraguay, Guatemala, Costa Rica, as well as the Dutch islands in the region were customer countries. BIC would also have sales agents in these countries who would partially manufacture its products. Of course, Argentina also proved to be attractive. Although BIC pens were sold there as early as 1962, it was not until 1967 that the company really established itself there. Jean-René Luc, Marcel BIC's brother-in-law, was in charge of setting up BIC in Africa. He regularly traveled to certain countries on the continent aboard a twin-engine Piper Apache emblazoned with the brand's colors, called La Ponte BIC. Reaching the town's outskirts, the plane dropped hundreds of advertising brochures, which swirled in the air before falling to the ground. Jean-René Luc then hurried to land to meet shopkeepers and booksellers, present the BIC items, and get orders. The company also hired multi-card representatives, as was done at the time, who were paid by commission and mainly traveled through French-speaking countries. The only country in Africa where BIC had an industrial facility was in South Africa. The factory located in Johannesburg was created by Biro Swan, which Marcel BIC bought in 1957. After having conquered the European and Commonwealth markets, after settling in Brazil and establishing a foothold in Africa and the Middle East, Marcel BIC turned to America. The sale of Waterman USA in 1958 seemed to him to be a perfect opportunity to establish himself on the North American continent. Reality turned out to be more bitter and difficult when it became apparent that the financial situation of Waterman was far worse than had been disclosed at the time of the sale, and Marcel BIC would need plenty of tenacity, pragmatism, and responsiveness for the American business to become a success. Listed on the stock exchange in 1970, the North American subsidiary BIC Corp would also subsequently be the bridgehead for the group's development in Central America. At the turn of the 70s, Marcel BIC decided to develop a new product, which he considered perfectly suited to the BIC model, the pocket lighter. After taking over the company Flaminaire in 1971 and under the leadership of Francois BIC, the production of lighters in the Redon factory was standardized as much as possible. In 1973, Bic launched its first pocket lighter, revolutionizing the industry by providing the consumer with 3,000 lights. The Bic lighter quickly became a world bestseller. Ignoring the pessimistic projections that shook the economy in the aftermath of the first oil shock, Marcel Bic tackled the shaving market. Similar to the pen and the lighter, thorough research took place to ensure the mastery of the shaver's industrial excellence. Quickly sold all over the world, the razor was adopted by a wide range of consumers, becoming a fan favorite, particularly among women. Thanks to its excellent quality-to-price ratio and ever bolder advertising campaigns, it imposed itself on many markets, making its competitor, Gillette, tremble. In 1993, at almost 80 years old, Marcel Bic entrusted the management of the group to his son Bruno. In reality, the tireless businessman did not wait until his old age to involve his children in the family business. Almost all of them had been involved from an early age, starting at the bottom of the ladder. This initiation facilitated the handover to the new generation who would continue and develop their father's work. Thanks to geographical expansion, the enrichment of product ranges, innovation, and ever-increasing research into industrial efficiency, the group continued to grow. At the dawn of the 2020s, the third generation took over with Gonzalo Bic, and the group took new strategic directions. While it focused on its three historical activities and its flagship products, the group is now also making a parallel commitment to adjacent and fast-growing markets. It is also making a digital shift, both in its offerings and its distribution networks, and it seeks to accelerate its approach to sustainable development. Along with the incomparable efficiency of a design exclusively at the service of a function and a very high demand for quality, advertising is one of the three pillars that has led to the tremendous success of Bic products. Since the beginning, being entrusted to talent agencies, Bic's advertisements have played on humor by sketching everyday life scenes, not without a lack of audacity. Likewise, the advertisements typically feature themes from pop culture, particularly sports, sometimes featuring celebrities to represent a product. Extraordinarily rich, Bic advertising on its own tells the story of advertising from the 1950s to the present day.
That truck ran over my Bic lighter, but even under tremendous pressure, I can still flick my Bic.
Flicking your Bic has become America's favorite pastime, so we hear lots of stories about people whose Bics flick through thin and thick.
Last year I lost this planting potatoes. Now I just found it. Can you imagine what it's like not to flick your Bic for a whole year?
Hey, Martha, pass me that big Easy Reach lighter and that bowl.
Bowl of strawberries.
Thanks. This is perfect for hard-to-reach places.
And it helps keep your fingers away from the flame.
Whoa, do I smell?
That's right. Fondue time.
Big Easy Reach, the ultimate lighter. Perfect for candles, grills, and so much more.
The Bic 2022 Transformation Plan, Invent the Future, and the Horizon Strategic Plan outline Bic's ambition for the years to come, to be more agile, more innovative, and more consumer-centric as a group. This involves refocusing on its historical activities, taking advantage of growth opportunities in adjacent markets through acquisitions, and an upmarket move in each of the product categories. Following this logic, Bic sold its subsidiary Bic Sport and its factory located in Vans in 2019 to the Estonian group Tahe Outdoors, one of the main European manufacturers of kayaks, canoes, and kitesurfs. In December 2020, the group also decided to separate from Pimeco, its adhesive label in Brazil. Additionally, the group was expanding the target scope of its three activities by focusing on market segments that until this point had been explored very little or not at all. In the razor segment, Bic was launching Made for You, a brand that offers gender-neutral refillable razors, and in writing instruments, it was positioning itself in the temporary tattoo market with Body Mark by Bic, designed to draw on the skin. Finally, in the lighters category, Bic was carrying out its first external growth operation since its creation, with the acquisition of Jeep, one of the main manufacturers of quality lighters based in Brittany, specializing in personalized lighters and limited series. This acquisition offered BIC opportunities for significant growth in the European and North American markets. In 2022, the group acquired Inkbox, a leading Canadian company in the semi-permanent tattoo market, Tattly, a leading decal brand based in the US, and AMI, Advanced Magnetic Interaction, a French startup pioneer in augmented interaction technology. A look back over the history of the remarkable BIC company reveals 4 key lessons for anyone seeking to innovate or improve their work or business. Let's start with entrepreneurial spirit. Marcel BIC was a typical entrepreneur. First, he was able to identify a market need for a product that had growth demand with limited supply. When he began manufacturing ballpoint pens, the potential was huge, but the 2 main suppliers had yet to master the reliability of their products. After spending the better part of 2 years refining the design of the ballpoint, Marcel BIC had created a reliable, high-quality product. Second, BIC demonstrated an appetite for risk. Not reckless risk-taking, but rather he saw the benefit of taking calculated risks to grow his business. He entered new markets that at that time were uncharted waters, but in so doing, he carefully mapped out a route, starting his own factories where opportunities presented or acquiring entire companies to convert into BIC facilities where this was deemed more appropriate. Next, we see how creative advertising was key to the company's growth. Whether through print adverts or cheeky and humorous advertising displays, BIC became known for their funny and very recognizable adverts. The company also entered the world of sponsorships to extend their advertising reach. Whether it was through the sponsorship of celebrity sportspeople or entire sporting teams, and even an entire event such as the Tour de France, BIC has been at the forefront of marketing and advertising since the beginning. This helped the company in its early internationalization efforts. In the years that have followed, this has helped BIC to become one of the largest pen companies in the world. Following this, we see how Marcel BIC pursued efficient design in all of the products he manufactured and sold. Examples of this can be seen in the adoption of the hexagonal shape of the crystal pen body, which is designed to provide a comfortable grip, as well as to prevent the pen from rolling off the desk. In the case of the lighter, the minimalist design reduces the number of parts, in turn reducing the possible elements that could fail. One of the less obvious but highly effective uses of efficient design is in the very name of the company, BIC. Based on Marcel BIC's surname, he dropped the letter H at the end to simplify the name, making it easier to remember. So, whether it was the shape of the pen body or a simple name, Marcel BIC's relentless pursuit of efficient design led BIC to produce incredibly useful designs while maintaining a cost-effective advantage over all of the company's competitors. Finally, we see how rigorous quality control was the key element to ensuring the company delivered high-quality products at an affordable price point to the mass market. Marcel BIC quickly recognized that the best and possibly the only way to achieve this was to ensure that as many of the processes as possible were internalized. He achieved this in one of 2 ways. He either built his own factories with end-to-end production facilities, or he purchased entire companies and converted them into BIC facilities. The results were that BIC built a reputation as a manufacturer of innovative, high-quality products that were very affordable to all. I'm fascinated by stories such as BIC's and loved making this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, please join me next time as we explore more stories behind famous company histories and the lessons that these can teach us. Until the next time, cheers.